I'm holding my phone because I don't. Hey, Dr. Kimberly, it says we're live somewhere in one of those corners. And yes, folks, I am holding my phone. That's why you can kind of. I'm downtown I was at a meeting and blah 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 and forgot my phone. Blah blah. That's why we're late. So enough for my excuses. Dr. Kimberly, what's up?
So we want to say thank you so much for rolling on the road today with Dr. Kimberly and Dave. Our show today is brought to you by Get Crocheted by Shayna. You guys have seen the promo. She lives in Bel Air, Maryland, and she makes the most beautiful baby blankets with a bear. And so I just ordered one. I have a brand new grandbaby boy, and it is being shipped all the way down there to Georgia. So I'm really excited about that. So today our show is sponsored by Get Crocheted by Shayna. Today we want to honor the life of, they call her the mother of advocacy, the mother of the disability civil rights. And you know how we all have these to-do lists and our check off and people that we want to meet. And she was one of my people, and that we were going to have on the show. I felt that we needed to get some more underneath our belt before I felt that we could invite her. But I think that we've done a lot collectively outside of the show, and she probably would have come. And so we missed that window of opportunity, but we won't miss it now to talk about her life and her legacy and some of the things that we're able to enjoy as persons with disabilities because of all the work that she's done. On last week, we honored Chris Smith, and I just have to say, if you are a person with a disability and you have a voice, there are some major voids that have been left because these two people are gone. And we ask that you come and you step up. You step up.
Exactly, folks. And in every way possible, it's to continue to advocate for yourself, with others, large issues, small issues. Those are the opportunities that will present themselves, that present themselves probably every day if you're living life with a disability. You know, again, as Dr. Kimberly said, Chris Smith, who had a great impact locally on a lot of folks and on a lot of folks within the art world and the disability art world. And not to judge, but Judy Heumann, if there's a Mount Rushmore of disability rights movement, Judy Heumann is definitely in the top 4. She's the top 2 in my book. I mean, her and Ed Roberts.
Yes.
And Judy Heumann, and Judy Heumann was always like in my top 10. And then I watched Crip Camp, and that's when I knew she was very, very important. And
yes.
She's tied for first with Ed Roberts for me. And especially now in Women's History Month, you know, again, she's tied with Ed Roberts. There is no difference between the two. Because she's had a longer life, she might be a little ahead of Ed. But we're not judging today. We're simply honoring Judy. You know, if you haven't watched Crip Camp, or if you have watched it, watch it again to really see that story, how, you know, Judy, and they tell a little bit about her own individual advocacy, and
Yes.
some of that popped up in the news pieces about her life that have been out early this week. You know, that she fought to get into teacher school or education.
I think that's a big piece. And I've been getting phone calls from parents asking me to come alongside them. And I don't want to say I've kind of stayed away from education, you know, from somebody who's educated, if you will, but it is. I have a friend, Amy. I don't know what's going on with my lighting here.
I thought maybe you were outside in the fog.
Oh, there we go. The light kind of. I was like, wait a minute, is my vision getting blurry? What's going on here? Just give me just a second. You guys can still see me, right? Yeah.
Yep.
But I have a friend, Amy, who lives in Wisconsin, who has, I want to say MS, and she's in a motorized wheelchair. And when I saw the education piece about Judith, I immediately said, oh my gosh, this is how Amy was able to get her job because of the work that she did. You know, I can see different ones that have been able to benefit. And Amy, on paper, she has a master's degree in teaching. And I mean, just the experience that she had the job until they found out when she came in for the interview that she was in a wheelchair. And then they told her that the position was filled. And we were like, oh my gosh. They went with another candidate. That candidate did not pan out, and they had to call her back.
Was this recently?
It's been a few years.
Okay.
Since it happened. But she was able to, you know, pull up the work that she had done to try to fight for that position, but ended up getting it anyway because the person just didn't have the qualifications that they put on the paper. I think today they call that imposter syndrome, or, you know, maybe aggrandize themselves.
Embellishments.
Yes, in that neighborhood.
And yeah, because I mean, Judy Heumann went from fighting to become a teacher to her, again, to risk sounding judgmental, the highest position she achieved was the undersecretary for the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitation Services. So she was like one or two rungs from the very top at the Department of Education. And so she was over top all of special ed programs and all rehabilitation service programs around the nation. And, you know, advocating within that big behemoth to, again, to focus on the outcomes. The outcomes are helping people with disabilities achieve their own goals and dreams. How is the system helping? You know, so anyways, Judy, again, that was one of her last roles. She was always involved with the World Institute on Disability, which is based in California. I mean, I just keep going back in my mind's eye to there's a group out of St. Louis that hosted a showing of Crip Camp a couple summers ago when it first came out. And then Judy Heumann it was all on Zoom. I don't know if anybody out there in the listening audience has ever heard of Zoom, but it was all on Zoom, and there were a few hundred people. And after the movie, then there was a Q&A with Judy. And I'm going to say the coolest part of the Q&A, at the risk of Dr. Kimberly tearing up here, the coolest part of the Q&A is that she was like, the only place she could get good Wi-Fi or whatever in her house, and so she was on a laptop, was in this hallway. And her husband, who also uses a wheelchair, they were like trying to navigate through the house together. And it showed Judy as a real person, folks. And you all know Dr. Kimberly. You know, I'm just going to say, when you say large and in charge, Dr. Kimberly's name comes up. And whatever you think of that public persona, and then the reality that she's also a real person. She just talked about a grandbaby. She's an awesome grandma. She's a mom. You know, she's engaged in her church and her faith community. All these things that make up what we call a real life, you know, and there might be a barrier. But, you know, sometimes we think, well, Judy Heumann's not real. She doesn't like have to get in this small little tiff with her husband about moving in the hallway so he could leave to go to his appointment. I mean, to me, that just showed again that Judy Heumann 100% was a human and lived life in all its reality. And when that reality included barriers, she just advocated with her by herself. She advocated with others. She was always moving forward for justice for all folks with disabilities. And if folks recall, when we were talking about Black History Month a few weeks ago, we talked about how, you know, the Black Panthers helped Judy Heumann and others who basically occupied a federal office building in San Francisco
Yes.
to get the regulations promulgated for the Rehab Act in 1978. Again, supported by the Black Panthers, because justice is justice, folks.
And it really is. And I think that sometimes, you know, we want to be placed in these little separate boxes, but, you know, all rights, human rights are all rights, regardless of race, color, creed, or their sexual orientation. And we need to remember that. You know, what do they say? An injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere.
Yep.
And so we need to come together and fight that. And for me, I think I'm pretty eclectic, you know, in the areas, but politics seems to kind of keep drawing me, you know, over that way. And I'm excited to say I've been busy having to check my email, and it's like, oh, you've been appointed, you know, to 2 different things by the Michigan Democratic Party. And I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. and saying one of them has been the affirmative action. And I said, wow, you know, when I just saw, you know, our chair, LeVar Burns, has just appointed you to the affirmative action, you know, for the Michigan, Democratic Party in prep for the Democratic National Convention. And I just said, wow. You know, to see that appointment and then, you know, in the next moment to know that Miss Heumann is gone. And I said, well, God, I thank you, because there has to be somebody that has to try to fill some of those spaces. And so I think the ask today is, if you're watching, you see it on the replay, you're watching it live, I'm asking you to please step up. I think as I have looked at over the years, all of the things that she's done, and certainly, you know, 30, 40 minutes is not enough time to discuss it all at all. But just even taking a moment to honor the work that she's done, her legacy, and to know there are freedoms, and I mean literally freedoms, that I enjoy as a person with a disability because of her.
Amen. Amen to that. I mean, and you know, if you're like me, you might read the headlines in the newspaper or online. Take time to click through and read the whole article.
Yes.
And again, and it's not, don't read the article and say, wow, she was so fantastic, I could never be that. Well, guess what? I'm not called to be Judy Heumann, I'm called to be Dave. And as Dr. Kimberly said, step up, roll up, be that advocate in whatever situation life puts you in. And if you need support, reach out. There's going to be support. You know, your local Center for Independent Living.
Yes.
Find other family, friends that want to hang out with you. That's, again, when you I'm going to keep saying it, when you watch, not if, when you watch Crip Camp, you're going to see how people came together and supported each other. They supported each other with the fun of camp, and then they supported each other in the direct action of occupying a federal building to force the change was promised. That's the thing. It wasn't like, I mean, it was in motion, and they're like, just finish the job.
That's it.
Yeah.
I definitely would like to say that I have to give America, if you will, they get at least 3.5, 4 stars. Okay. And maybe part of it is my personality. I don't know. I don't know. But I do appreciate how people are really stepping up and they're asking the questions. And a few weeks ago, I was just devastated. I was hurt. I mean, hurt to my heart that someone would say to me that people are just placating me and patting me on my head. And I'm that inspirational puppy dog, the inspirational. And I beg to differ. They were entitled to their opinion, but it cut me to my core. And that someone still thinks that way or would think that way towards me. And I definitely was able to see over this last week and a half that is so not true. And that's the piece. So if you are feeling reluctant because someone has said that to you, like, oh my gosh, isn't it wonderful that you woke up today and showed up for life? Oh my God, God bless you. You're so wonderful. If you heard that, ignore it. Just know we need you. Because a lot of times that's what stops many of us from participating because we don't want that.
Right.
We don't want it.
Right. And that's what we talked about last week about Chris, is like, if Judy did not want to inspire you just to have like an inspiration as a good feeling. My heart is warm when I hear of Dr. Kimberly's story. And, when she talked last week about, the impact of the fashion show and how her, beauty shined through and who she really was and the time they took in all of that. And I could say, oh, I'm so inspired. And in 5 minutes, that warm, fuzzy feeling disappears because I turn on Spartan basketball and I get mad. If it's just a feeling, it's gone. However, what Dr. Kimberly's been focused on for years, what Judith Heumann was celebrated for and worked on for years and decades, was to instigate action, instigate justice. So if inspiration moves to instigation, you're on the right track. If inspiration just moves on to the next emotion, check yourself. And again, we're not judging you. We're just saying, get inspired to get instigated. Don't get inspired just to feel good.
Well, I don't know if she's watching, but yesterday I was coming off of an elevator. I got a little turned around. I was trying to think where I was and what was going to be the best way to get to the parking lot. Seeing how it was a gabillion, miles away inside the hospital to go outside. And a lady just came alongside and she goes, "You look like you might be lost." And she said, "Where are you trying to go?" And I told her. She says, "Oh, girl, I got you. Come on, let's go." So she had her Starbucks, and I was like, she's my friend already because she's got Starbucks. Like, oh my God, yeah. And so I held on to her Starbucks and we just start chit-chatting, just like we were two old friends. And by the time we got to the parking lot, I said to her, "I want to tell you thank you." She starts crying. She's like, "You don't have to thank me." And her name is Monica. Yeah. So Monica, if you're watching, I want to tell you again, thank you. And what I said to her was, "This is how we change the world." She looked at me and I said, "Yeah." So of course, I went to Google and I type in my name. And of course, on my phone, all this stuff pops up immediately. That's my algorithms. And she said, "Oh my God, I didn't know who I was pushing. So she sees all of this stuff and she's like, I am so glad. I am, you know me, I get emotional. But she was crying and she says, I am so glad that I'm not a different type of person. And she says, you know, because a lot of times we see somebody like, oh my God, can he help you? And wow, you know, you're out by yourself. That's so inspirational. But it wasn't that. It was the way I explained, how I told her it felt to me was she's coming in the parking lot. She sees a lady who's got a 2-year-old screaming. She's trying to put the groceries in the car. And she just comes along and says, hey, you want me to hold the baby or you want me to help you get groceries in? And she says, well, you know what? I'll grab my baby if you help me if you put the groceries in. That's a different type of help. And you don't think that's inspirational. You know what I mean? You just know, hey, I'm a mom. I've had kids. I know what it's like. Let me just help you out. And so I told her when she said, can I help you? And started to push me. Because, you know, my running joke is, sure, you can push me around and talk behind my back. I don't care. You know, and that's what we're looking for. Is this like, hey, oh, my girlfriend needs a little help right there. Or, you know, my guy friend needs a little help. And let me just come alongside. Hey, man, you know, let me help you with the lawnmower. It's not starting. You know how you guys do, you know, or you help each other out, untangle the hose or get the right hammer or the right, you know, lug nut, whatever it is. There's a difference. There's a definite difference.
Yeah, we know when it's, I'm just gonna say legit. And there's a few fakers out there that are really, really good and they fool you. But 99.9% of us, we know if it's legit. We know if it's, like you said, patting people on the head, patting you on the head. You know, it's like, thanks, but really, no thanks. You know, with that, I don't need it with a cup full of attitude. So anyways, definitely as awesome that, you know, again, folks, just help people know. Don't pity, patting on, all that stuff. That's what Judy Heumann was not about. Was not about pity, was not about inspiration. She was simply about justice and inclusion and working every day to make that happen.
I appreciate the fact that she worked with, I know, at least 3 presidencies overseeing.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
and so I appreciate and I applaud the presidents that saw the need. You know, they're like, okay, look, we got a gap here in services. Let's go find, you know, the best person or best persons. And then I love the fact that, you know, she empowered other people, whether it
Yep.
was directly or indirectly. And so I definitely, when I saw, I appreciate it. Well, she worked for the Obama administration. So it was no surprise that he would fund, you know, Crip Camp. You know, he's the executive producer, him and his
Yep.
wife. And so I'm like, he gets it. You know,
Yep.
he really gets it. And I'm going to tell you, one of the things that I loved about the movie was the camaraderie. You know, we talked, I think the last 3-4 shows, we have really focused on that peer support. That when someone can come alongside you that knows and has some of the same similar lived experiences, it definitely makes a difference. And I would implore everyone who's watching, whether you have a disability or an ability, you need to find your tribe. You know, those who will come alongside you, be that peer support, move you forward in what it is that you've been called to do. And so I love how we did it, a couple of weeks ago. I had to be in my manual wheelchair and Patrick had a motorized chair and all I did was hold on to the side and he just pulled me along, you know, we did.
Well, and that's what we talked about. I don't know if it was last week or a couple of weeks ago. definitely the deep myth of independence and even the myth of interdependence, the reality is we're all dependent on each other.
We are.
And folks with disabilities don't get to hide behind the myth. I'm okay, I'm independent. I can just leave me alone. And it's like, no, we're dependent on each other. Everyone's dependent on everyone else. And so that myth isn't allowed, which then, as Dr. Kimberly just said, she's able to say, "Hey, Patrick, can I grab a hold of your power wheelchair and I'll roll right next to you." And off they went, two people dependent on each other.
And I think that was what I loved the most. And, I was a few years into my wheelchair life when I participated with DisArt in the process and presence of disability in fashion. But even in that, each one of us had a different type of disability and how we came alongside of each other. I think we talked about, last week, how Noah, pushed me because it was a 150-foot ramp for us to model on. That's a lot for me in the wheelchair that I had. And for him to come and say, "Hey, you know what? I can push you." Even Cassandra normally walks, but her disability sometimes requires that she needed to use a wheelchair. So we had another person who had a neural disability who came alongside of her and said, "Hey, guess what? Don't worry about it. I got you. I can push you." And so we came out together. And I was like, wow, that right there is something that we can teach the able-bodied community, how we just come alongside of each other.
Amen. Because people, again, back to knowing people know when it's legit, and
Yeah.
they know when you are legitimately trying to build community, as opposed to, luckily no names come to mind, but the people who go to a networking event and it's like, "Hey, how can I be dependent on you? How can you be dependent on me?" And it's a very positive, fun time. And then you have a few people that wander through just looking to, "How can you help me? Me, 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 me,
Yes.
me.
Yes.
Let me sing. Me, me, me,
Me, me, me.
me, 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 me." So yes,
It's all
it's
about
yeah.
me.
Let's go me to we.
Hey, Maddie. Maddie, I want to say, do we remember where Maddie is from? Louisiana? Kentucky.
I don't
She's
recall.
not from Michigan. So we want to say thank you so much, Maddie, for tuning in. We want to say thank you so much to Artie Franklin, who's tuning in. He's here in the Grand Rapids area. And of course, one of our top fans, Vertaji, who is all the way in Detroit. And any of those, please let us know that you're out there and that you're watching. Speaking of which, our show today has been sponsored by Get Crocheted by Shayna. She is from Bel Air, Maryland, and she makes the most beautiful baby blankets and baby little teddy bears. Oh my God, he's so cute. And if you check out the page, he is up there, and his name is Henry Bear. Yeah, that's Henry Bear.
Awesome.
Yep. Thank you, sir. But we're so excited that you tuned in today. We're celebrating the life of an icon in the disability world. This is our second week that we've had two great folks in our world. And as we say that a soldier has fallen. And so we are flying our flags at half mast.
Well, and there is an effort. Here's something you could do right now, folks. There's a small effort that needs to grow, reaching out to your governor. So if you're in Michigan, Governor Whitmer, if you're in your own state, to your governor, and to President Biden to request that flags be flown at half mast for Judy. So I know there's been very absolutely.
I think
Just
I
head
might
to,
I think I might be able to, call in a favor.
You can call The rest of us are going to email on that portal she has. But just go to, michigan.gov/governor. There's a way to put the note in. President Biden has a similar inbox. Check it out, and request that flags be flown at half-mast for Judy Heumann. Because again, not being judgment against any of us who don't stack up to where Judy Heumann is. However, very few people, in fact, I would say almost no one other than Ed Roberts, have done as much for people with disabilities in our nation and around the world as they truly were the champions of the independent living movement, taking their inspiration from the Black Civil Rights Movement, the Women's Civil Rights Movement, Disability Civil Rights Movement. We're still working on it, folks. I mean, we do a lot, as we like to say, to add the A to DEI, so diversity, equity, and inclusion, add access. So that way you're able to weave it all in, get it done once, or it'll never be done. Maybe
Well,
to say
I call it aid to diversity, equity, inclusion. That accessibility plus diversibility equals, that equity. So I put accessibility first, and I don't want anyone to take away like, oh my gosh, when you begin to read and see all that she's done, please don't feel that that's who you have to be. Because trust me, there is still so much more work. There are some things that were foundational that had to be done. And we have a foundation. So we just need to continue to build upon it. And that's what she did. Just like, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, they built a foundation, but it's the rest of us that have to continue to build upon that.
And it's that idea of what are the opportunities that, if it's just helping somebody you see at the store, that story that Dr. Kimberly told, seeing just being a person and a listening ear, and then you do something big. Like a couple of weeks ago, we had on Reggie and Taz from Heroes Corner.
Mm-hmm.
Again, saw a need, and they started creating a safe space for veterans, so that could be your calling, or your calling is just be that unsung person who's able to help in that small present way. If it's volunteering at your faith community or your neighborhood association, there's plenty of places. I can't remember which month it is, that it's like, I think it's March even. It's like, it's reading in school month, like different,
I think it's March. I just saw somebody make a post that they were going to do that in the next week or so, I think.
Yeah. So, going to a local elementary school, get your background check done, all that stuff. And then you can go help in a school, tutor some little kids. It's again, it's easy for us to judge, all that little kids falling behind reading. Where are their parents? Well, their parents might be working 2 jobs, to keep food on the table in this economy. As a small digression, did you see the news over the weekend that in the state of Kentucky, there was a mile-long wait? Now, of course, it was vehicles, but still, it was a mile-long wait for free food. Something's wrong in this country. We got a record number of billionaires, and we have a mile-long wait for free food. So anyways, let's not judge. Let's just be of help. Again, check out your school, homeless shelter, wherever. I mean, there's tons of volunteer opportunities. Our United Way has a volunteer program where they match people to their interests, to different groups. And then before you know it, you might be barricaded in Department of Education with Dr. Kimberly. But, it might lead you there. It might not. Chances are it won't. but that's the again uh,
Mm,
the witness of Judy Heumann is that she rolled into the opportunities that were in front of her. And she had the leadership skills. When I'm gonna just keep saying it, folks, when you watch Crip Camp, you'll see she was a leader at the camp. She was a leader in her own life. Then she got, fully engaged in the National Disability Rights Movement, a leader at the World Institute of Disability, a leader in government, leading presidents towards, their
yes.
policy for justice with people with disabilities. So whatever opportunities in front of you, there is no small one. They are all that.
And I'm going to give you something that's really simple that you can do. If the next time you see someone that has a visible disability, you don't try to figure out what they need. You ask them, how may I help you? Do you even need my help?
Yep.
I was day before yesterday, when I haven't had to navigate with a car and the wheelchair and the manual wheelchair in over a year and a half almost. And so getting back into that regimen has been just a little daunting for me. But I appreciate each person. And if you're watching, I appreciate you. I told you in the moment, but I'm saying it again. And this is where it really will start, is that each person said to me, you seem to be very independent. So I'm not going to assume that I know how to help you. I'm just going to stand by, and whatever help looks like for you, know that I'm available to you. That made me cry every single time. And if you are a person that has a disability, I don't know why they feel they need to yell at you, because not every person who's physically disabled is hard of hearing. And so people raise their voices. And even if you didn't raise your voice, that would be wonderful. It's just the small things. We're not asking you to go out and draft up a House bill to get it passed, or, go out there and build ramps and, just, it's just the small things.
Exactly, folks. It's all those small things that come together. And it's going to create a much, much better community, and an inclusive community, and a community that truly honors each other.
I think next week is going to be dedicated to my trip, because I created this rolling rewards thing. And so I'm going to start putting it on, because I'm a Google contributor, a Google Map contributor, and I'm going to start using it as I do it. And I don't want to give too much away for next week, but one of the things that you can do is, if you own a restaurant, consider having a section for wheelchairs, that it's always open. One of the things that I think is most disruptive, humiliating, and embarrassing as a person in a wheelchair is when you make reservations and you tell them up front that, you have your chair. We make the joke, oh, I come with my own seat. So it's 5 of us. We only need 4 chairs. The other, what do we go out? It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us. So we said it's 5 of us, but we only need 3 chairs. And the girl, what did she do? She said, do you know what he just said? Did you get that? I didn't. What does that mean? And we're just laughing. because you got two people who are here, in a wheelchair, and she didn't get it.
Sometimes those kids just don't get it.
They don't. But it was so disruptive because the way everything was set, there was not a clear path. So I felt like we were in this cartoon where, you're up underneath the ground, when Bugs Bunny is up underneath the ground and you see all the things, and then he comes up and it's like, oh, he comes up and he runs into a pole. And so people are seated, they're eating, and then they're asking everybody, can you please get up? Can you please move over? That's embarrassing.
Yeah.
And then people are irritated, and it just ruins the atmosphere. Yes, I like that. You can help, sir. And the restaurant or the dinner theater that I went to in New York, when I tell you, they had everything set up that nobody was disrupted when they rolled me in, because they changed the seating in the dining room so that when they rolled me in, I came straight in. They had a clear path, and my table was ready and already had the chair removed. So we didn't have to disrupt anybody and their meal, their drinks. Didn't have to wait for somebody to come, move a chair. Where are we going to put this extra chair now? It was none of that. It may seem like, well, that's no big deal. It makes all the deal.
Yeah.
All the deal.
Oh, yeah. Amen.
Because what it does, it gives that person, number one, dignity and respect. And it makes them feel not that you, me, I don't have to fit in. As you can tell by my clothes. I mean, look at the crazy colors, the outfit. I'm just going to be me. So I'm not one that needs to fit in. But you don't like to be, you don't like the spotlight like that. Because now everybody stops and they're ogling, and some people are offended that you've disrupted the ambiance.
One of the biggest pieces of wisdom I heard this last, I don't know, few months, somebody said that if you plan to accommodate, that means you've originally planned to exclude. And so the restaurant accommodated you, Dr. Kimberly, but they had to accommodate you. Well, that restaurant didn't accommodate you. That restaurant in New York included you.
Yes.
They included you from the get-go. But the restaurant we went to here in Grand Rapids, they accommodated you and Patrick, which meant they planned to exclude you. You were excluded, and then to make room for you, then everyone, then this is just a conjecture, but it's like, oh, I've got to move my chair for that person with a disability, and I'm slightly, like, oh, what's happening? I'm slightly embarrassed, and so I'm putting this embarrassment, I'm attaching it to disability. But it's like, no, don't make that connection. Make that connection to the person that planned to exclude. Their game plan was to exclude wheelchairs until we have to accommodate, as opposed to our plan is to include people with wheelchairs. Don't have to worry about accommodations. We got a plan to include. So
what I loved
positive.
What I appreciated about that, we were only on the phone 3 minutes and 29 seconds. You hear that, friends and neighbors? It only took 3 minutes and 29 seconds.
Yep.
Give me a world-class experience.
Just like everybody else in the room.
And
we weren't asking for anything special because everybody in the room got a world-class experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But again, we will talk about from the airline to the hotel to 54 and below. um, and I can definitely attribute that to a Judy, that she's been out there,
Yep.
and she was in the New York area, and so how that trickle down effect, and really, I don't know if they've had to make accommodations like that before, but what I will say is that anybody that comes after Dr. Kimberly, they're going to get that same world-class experience. Because, it, and I will say this, in any situation, 90% of it, trust me, friends and neighbors, I've been here almost 60 years. So I know a little something, something. And I've been in this wheelchair for 10. This is my 10th year. And 90% of anything that you experience in life is your attitude towards it. It makes the difference. And so if you come in the room with this attitude of, I'm not going to be accommodated, nobody wants me here, I feel uncomfortable, you're really going to get that. And you're going to draw that to you. But if you come in that room, you command it, and you say, I deserve to be here. I have great expectation. I know they're going to treat me well. I'm looking forward to a great experience. Oh, thank
Amen
you.
to that for Tanji.
Thank you. What does this one say? Yes, you definitely got to trust the process. And so, you say thank you. And I'm telling you, I came in with great expectation. We talked 3 minutes, 29 seconds, and she took, copious, meticulous notes. And there's a difference between interpretation and translating. Translate, you say and you do exactly what was said and what you heard. When you interpret, you start putting in your own bias, and sometimes it's not always that great, your thoughts, when you start mixing it in with something else. But she heard me, she translated to that staff, and I'm telling you, but I came in, I didn't know any of this, but regardless of what she did or did not do for the staff, I came in with the attitude that I was going to be treated well. This was going to be great. I know I may have not had good experiences in the past or going into restaurants, what that looks like. And, yep, we call out names. Outback is infamous for that. That I'm there. They always have at least 3 people that are up front when you come. They'll ask you, do you have a reservation? If you don't, they'll say, okay, let's check the tables. When you do that, and 10 times out of 10, I've already called ahead so that they can have everything set when I get there. But it's always the same thing. I come in, everybody's looking at each other. They start that whisper. Okay, she's in a wheelchair. So, okay, well, where are we going to put her? Well, is she going to get out of her chair? See if she can get out the chair. Then we can put her in a booth. And in that way, the wheelchair won't be in the way. Okay, I can hear you. My hearing aids are up. I can hear you. And so that right there starts the experience off like this.
Exactly.
But I still have to always say, you know what? There's always that teaching moment. And I sit and I smile, and I don't engage them to annihilate them, but I engage them. You know what? I can help you. This is what your best practice should be. And when you see someone, you should always at least have a table available, or kind of keep a space open. And as soon as you see someone come in with a wheelchair, send a server. to immediately remove a chair so that they can just wheel up to the table, and then they're not disrupting the other people around them.
Folks, it can be easy if you plan to include from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, again, to circle back around to today, honoring Judy Heumann. She simply, at times, asked politely, at other times, demanded, let's plan for inclusion. Let's plan for justice, and we will achieve inclusion and justice, as opposed to only every once in a while getting it.
Yeah. And with that, we want to say thank you so much for tuning in. And please, if you've never heard of her, which I can't believe that you haven't, okay, yeah. But just in the off chance that you haven't, please go look her up, go to Netflix, and invite some friends over. If you have some folks that don't necessarily know what to do, how to do, you guys plan to hang out at somebody's house, and you guys Netflix it, get some great takeout, and watch the show. You're gonna really enjoy it. And again, today's show was sponsored by Get Crocheted by Shayna. That's Shayna Thomas. You can find her on Facebook, Instagram. You can. And you can go onto our pages and see our promo and get her information. And we want to say thank you so much for tuning in today. And we thank you. We thank you for all the work that you've done so that all of us can live a better life. Because as I say, when you agree to make a decision based off the most excluded, then you've included everybody. Until tomorrow, yep, when women step up, 4 o'clock live. You guys take care of yourself. And oops, I think I got kicked out. Can you guys
Not
still
yet.
see? You see me? Oh, there we go. I got all these notifications on here, and I got to click them off so I can click in.
Thanks for joining us, folks.
The broadcast has ended.
The broadcast has ended.
Oh, and there goes another notification. There we go. So I can click the